Whether you believe me or not, the coming months will offer you a unique opportunity in this crypto market. And of course, we're all fed up and don't want to hear it. Anyway, everything's supposed to be so positive again, but nothing actually happens and the altcoins keep bleeding out and so on. I know all of this, I know the complaining too, but nonetheless, just take a look at the facts, the things that are actually meaningful here. And I'm telling you, the next few months are going to get really interesting again. Even though we are basically in the middle of summer now, after long down phases, we've always seen a breakout. In this cycle, we've already had several upward trends here, and here. 3 of them, to be exact. These upward trends also lasted for quite a long time, sometimes 200 days, 140 days, and we saw some really nice rallies here. But after that, we always had a down phase, which is just as much a part of it here. I can show you exactly one of those right here. That's exactly what the down phase looks like. In this example, that was basically the down phase, or in this example, this here was the down phase. It's just as much a part of it, and it's actually not a bad thing, because it allows us to relieve selling pressure from time to time and enables completely organic growth. And in this cycle, it's also the case that every time we test the 50 EMA on the weekly chart, we see a big breakout in Bitcoin. 1, 2, 3. This has already happened twice, and the first time we saw an upward trend of nearly 190% in Bitcoin, which lasted over 180 days. The second time we had an upward trend of over 100%, and that also lasted more than 140 days. Recently we tested it again a few weeks ago, and the current upward trend is only about 80 days old. That means we might even have twice as much time ahead of us. And that's only because we had a longer stagnation phase here. And the whole thing is also somewhat based on the fact that we have a really steep increase here in the global M2 money supply. I shifted the M2 money supply by 86 days, and you can see that the M2 money supply can be mapped exactly onto our chart. We're simply following the M2 money supply almost exactly, just about 80 days behind. You can see here in some places how perfectly we followed it. Right now, we have a sideways phase, but we had exactly the same thing back then. So all we have to do is keep following the M2 money supply, and we would end up at over $150,000 in this cycle at least, without even entering an overheated zone. If we then get a real euphoria phase on top of that retail overheating, then it will go significantly higher. But based on the M2 money supply, we can clearly see that the coming months will be predominantly positive, and that's already set in stone because we're simply getting more liquidity into the market. Additionally, in 5 out of 6 cases, June has been our bottom for altcoins. In the past, it has happened too often that June really signaled our bottom. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case again this time. That's why I'm optimistic, especially regarding altcoins. Especially because we can also see that we will see interest rate cuts this year. In the Fed's discussions, you can slowly start to hear that they're gradually getting ready to lower interest rates, which is very, very positive. That too would bring more fresh capital into the markets. Smart money continues to buy in. I mean, just take a look. Who has been buying in the past few months? We don't have retail investors here. What we have here is smart money, the Bitcoin ETFs, Michael Saylor, more and more companies buying up Bitcoin. By now, we have over 60 companies doing exactly the same thing as MicroStrategy. And you really have to take a hard look at yourself and think about the whole situation. Because, I mean, yes, the US has huge problems, massive debt. They also have high inflation in some areas, unemployment rates are high, and credit card spending is enormous. So there are really an incredible number of problems in the US, but nobody seems to care when we see money printing, interest rate cuts, and when everything is shaping up in the background for the perfect bull run. And that's exactly what I want to make clear to you. Jerome Powell has simply made it clear that the Fed is slowly preparing to cut interest rates. You could already pick up on that between the lines here. That is incredibly positive. And just to sum up, we could list so many things for you. Take a look at this. Interest rate cuts mean money expansion. And even without that, we're already seeing money expansion, which is boosting our market. The tariff drama in the US is gradually coming to an end. The Iran-Israel conflict was very brief and was quickly resolved, so we are no longer at risk of a third world war here. The S&P 500 is reaching new all-time highs. How positive is that? It wouldn't be reaching new all-time highs if we weren't expecting further interest rate cuts this year. That means interest rate cuts are still being factored in, or else we would be expecting a third world war here, as some recently claimed during the Iran-Israel conflict. If that were the case, we wouldn't be seeing new all-time highs in the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, and so on right now. So the people who really know what they're doing are currently very optimistic. We can see that in the traditional markets, Trump is also making more and more references to money printing. And money printing is important because the US has to refinance $9 trillion this year. That's impossible with the current budget deficit. Accordingly, we need new money. With new money, Bitcoin and especially the altcoins go up. The US Senate is slowly moving towards making crypto and Bitcoin tax-free. That's also really positive. As a result, we'll see more volume coming in, more people trading here, because people know, hey, what I earn here is tax-free. An Ethereum Solana staking ETF is coming, which will be incredibly important, especially for institutional investors. This will also shift the focus even more towards altcoins. That will give the altcoin sector another boost. And the sentiment right now is worse than ever before. And that's actually extremely positive, because the worse the sentiment is, the more dramatically it can swing in the other direction. We're not just following the crowd here. Take a look at who's buying right now. The people who only have about 1 Bitcoin are selling during these phases, while we see people with over 100 Bitcoins, they're accumulating. Look at that. It's not for nothing that such big whales are accumulating. They're accumulating because they know more, because they're even more optimistic than ever before. The difference is simply that the smart money is buying in now, while retail investors are completely out of the picture. Retail has given up because here in white we see the Bitcoin price. And here in the background is the retail activity. And normally it's like this. When Bitcoin rises, retail activity rises as well. But since the last crash, we've lost a lot of retail investors because they're just slowly losing interest. And since the big upward trend, retail just hasn't come back. And that's the thing. By now, sentiment is so bad that retail has given up. And that in turn is extremely positive in the long run. The more extreme it swings in one direction, the more extreme it will swing back in the other direction. That's generally how it is in the market, but it's also true in real life. Because sentiment is so bad, the market makers will also work to bring in fresh liquidity again. And they can only do that if we suddenly see a really big turnaround here. And I think that could happen in the next few months, because one thing is clear. Based on time and data, we still have until the end of the year to see our bull run peak. But we have 30 indicators here that signal a bull run top to us, and so far none of them have triggered. That means we haven't seen a bull run top yet, and we only have a few months left to see one if we rely on time and data now. Because, as I said, 2013, 2017, and 2021, the bull runs were always relatively similar. Most of the time, 17 or 18 months after the halving, we've seen our bull run top. And because that's always been the case, you can assume that it will be the same this time as well. And if it really is the same this time, then we only have a few months left where things should really take off. And that's why I'm optimistic, because everything is really coming together in the background exactly the way we need it, just the way we want it. And that's why I tend to think that by September at the latest, we could really see some great numbers here, another real price explosion, and then that final phase of euphoria. That's just my personal opinion. But feel free to write your opinion in the comments, and at this point I want to sincerely thank you for watching. See you next time, friends. Bye.